Butch Queen.
Exactly. Butch Queen.
Butch Queen.
Butch Queen.
Butch Queen.
Butch.
Yes, Bush Queen. Yeah.
Give me the honey, give me the honey, yeah. Give me the honey, and let me love it, yeah. No, 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 no.
And what's up, YouTube universe, and welcome back to another episode of Dragon. Oh, here. Yes, I love this slow motion. Yeah!
Very sad.
It was the choreography for me. It got real sensual. I like all that.
It's too much.
Yes. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Dragon. I am your host for this season, Marlin. Yes, it is me. And also, welcome back our lovely, illustrious co-host, the ever so beautiful ChaseKassidy. How are you, darling? Yes.
I'm great, man. I'm great.
Yes. Yo, so here we are, another episode. And what are we talking about today, ladies and germs? We are talking about the cult classic, Paris is Burning!
It speaks for itself.
Hey, yo, listen. So
Yes.
when Chase was like, so what show should we do next? I was like, listen, since we already did Legendary, we are on the ballroom train. Let's just ride it all the way out, do the blast from the past, and let's talk about where the exposure to mainstream media started. And that is with Paris is Burning. Paris is Burning came out in 1990.
1990, child. I was a good 5 years old or four, depending on at what point in the year it dropped. Yeah, that is literally, like, unfortunately for some people, a lifetime ago. Like, it's the entire planet was different. The entire planet, everything was different. Everything.
Yeah, completely different. My ass at a smooth 8 years old, I hadn't even seen it yet. I can't even think of when I actually saw it for the first time. I feel like I was a teenager,
Okay.
but I can't remember. And I know that I caught it being over my cousin's house, somebody that had cable and actually had the opportunity to see it.
First time I saw it, I was like, okay, I get how this translates to, the balls of now and like how the girls are so into voguing and stuff like that. So I get
Right.
it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That was my first thing.
When you saw it for the first time, or maybe for you, like when you came back around to it and watched it again, like what was like the effect that it had on you? What did you take from it? Like what were you thinking while you were watching it?
Okay, so that actually happened for me as I was rewatching it for this. Like when I started watching it this time at 38 instead of 30, 29, I felt a lot of joy watching it this time, but also at the same time, like this heaviness and this sadness that kind of came along with it. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit later, but I do want to say this. Every queer person, but especially if you are a gay person and you are Black or brown, you need to, this is part of your gay education. This actually should be one of the first things that you like, that you watch, that you ingest, because it has so much of our culture in it.
Okay, to explain mopping. Mopping, you go into a store and just look for whatever you want to see. Look for whatever. Mopping is stealing.
So watching it back this time, I watch it with like such pride. I'm watching it like it's the first time it ever came out. I've seen it like 3 or 4 times in like the last 2 weeks, including as I'm watching it right now.
Something that I really appreciated about Paris is Burning is that though you knew for sure that there were white folks involved in creating this movie and this documentary, I appreciated the fact that back in those times, because it was definitely recorded in the late 80s, Back in those times, there was no money grab here. This was a person trying to tell a story that they felt that people needed to hear, and they went to the source and got it from the people instead of like, oh, I got a good girlfriend that knows about this, and I just know that this is going to make me tons of fucking money, so I'm going to go ahead and make this thing. Like, and I think that speaks to what you said about how it felt like honest, because it came from our mouth. Like, the words came from our mouth. Didn't nobody step from behind the camera and was like, oh, when I spoke to Peppa, this is what happened. It was like, girl, no. Like, we got all the words from the girls, and it was just, it was perfect in that fact. And I'm glad you said it like that. Essentially, and that goes into the question that we asked in the episode, is about what does it give back to the culture? And it is so ingrained in the culture. Like, it has seeped out beyond gay culture to the point that, not that I will appreciate most of it sometimes, but you know, we can't gatekeep everything all the time. A lot of the lingo has leaked over into the straight world.
You want to talk about reading? Let's talk about reading. What is wrong with you, Pedro? Are you going through it? You're going through some kind of psychological change in your life?
She went back to be a man.
Oh, you went back to being a man. Touch this skin, darling. Touch this skin, honey. Touch all of this skin. Okay? You just can't take it. You're just an overgrown orangutan.
And, you know, when we talk about gaycation, straight folks, y'all need gaycation too. No shame. And this should be on your repertoire to learn. I mean, because a lot of y'all, hearing a straight man talk about tea and shade rubs me a way that I just can't. Like, it makes my skin crawl off.
Oh, you nasty.
So, Chase, I wanted to ask you specifically, being a native New Yorker.
Yeah.
What type of, like, watching it and being a native New Yorker, I imagine has to be a different experience. Because me, hailing from the Midwest, like, my vision of New York as a youngin' was totally different. I was terrified. Bitch, the city's entirely too big. You bitches gotta go over water to go with your girlfriends. I don't think so. Yeah. But as a native New Yorker, like, could you see, like, did you see familiar places? Did you see spaces where you like, yo, like, this is part of my hood. This is part of where I'm from. Like, how did that translate to you?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's not something that, it's something that I think like my spirit or soul accepted as I was watching it, but I didn't like consciously think about it. This felt extremely familiar to me, this movie. This film, it really did. Of course, I wasn't, you know, around. Well, I was around when this was filmed, but I don't remember this time of my life necessarily, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
But what I do remember about New York, and it still stands to this day, is that New York has a feeling. It has a feeling. It has the realness of New York has a look. The realness I'm talking about, not the stuff you see on TV.
Yes.
Look, like you can, like I can smell it as I'm watching it. You know, and I know that sounds like, because it is.
That's real.
I can smell it. Also, what I loved is like I was like, yo, these are people that I grew up with. Like the way they were speaking is the way that the people around me and that I spoke. Like it's a certain sauce that New York is in their language, especially when they're speaking to each other. And it's beautiful, man. It felt good. Again, another layer of representation for me, another layer of honesty. I have to commend the people who put this together. I mean, it feels like they did so with respect, and they did so with love for not only the subject matter and the story they were telling, but the people's story that they were telling. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely. Like I talked to my fiance a lot about like how different areas in New York have changed since he grew up, like, because he's from here, you know what I'm saying? So to hear him talk about, like, yo, this wasn't even like this before, motherfuckers wasn't even down here, white folks would have never came over here before, all that shit is just amazing to me, and it speaks so much to why it's important that we have this knowledge about the culture, about, like, where we came from when it comes to, especially being Black and gay. This shit is really important.
Yeah, man.
To see, like, how we came up from the trenches and what it looked like back then until now, especially understanding like the privileges and things that we have now that we didn't have back then. Shit's wild. It's nuts.
You know what's interesting though, that as much as things are different than they were back then.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things, and I had this in my notes, a couple of the things that like really jumped out at me that were like, I'm like, damn, it's sad that this is still constant, is that a lot of the people that we followed here, they were, driven by capitalism, the American dream.
I think if I could just be on TV or film or anything, I'd do that instead of the money. Of course, I do want the money because I want the luxury that goes with it. But I want to be wealthy. If not wealthy, content, comfortable. I want to be somebody.
Yes.
Like I just and it came from an honest place, because all they wanted to do, all we want to do is live and mind our business and live well and have the same opportunities as everybody else. But like it was all about the money. It was about everyone, when they spoke about their goals, they wanted to be at least financially comfortable. What's it's the same thing now. It's the same exact thing. Also, all like the racism.
I would like to be a spoiled with rich white girl. They get what they want whenever they want it, and they don't have to really struggle with finances and nice things and nice clothes, and they don't have to have that as a problem.
The racism.
Insane.
It's just never going to stop. It's never like ever. And I'm just like, this is mad. There was something else. What was it? Hold on. Is it in my notes? Oh, this one was huge for me. And I kind of want to like get your thoughts on this too. So I hope you have a question about this and we're covering it. When it comes to realness and code switching.
You're gay, you monitor everything you do.
And both that stuck out to me throughout. I was like, just having to fit in with society, not being clockable, things of that nature. These are still things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that can segue us into this next question that I had. Being a person that has been in ballroom since 2000, I have watched categories evolve.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of them are still staples. Realness is still a staple. Of course, voguing is still a staple. Runway has evolved a whole lot. Face is still a thing. All of these things, are still in ballroom. But I took that same point that you caught, where back then, because they specifically talked about femme queen realness, and when we say femme queen, we're talking about trans women. They talked about how the dolls back then were focused on looking like models, felt thin, passable, all those things. And if you look at the dolls back then to the dolls now, the evolution is vastly different because of what society now deems beautiful.
Yeah.
But the ideology and the focus is still the same. To be and pass in this society that damns them for being who they are. Yes. You know what I mean? And even with like the realness for the butch queens, when we say butch queen, we are talking about gay men that can pass as being masculine and feminine at the same time. Education's more, But yes, even back then, it was just same thing. You Rainbow. It's the same thing, like, just looking at the evolution, man, and seeing the oppression still like pressing forward. Even and the thing that really like hit me hard about it is that even when you think that you've come so far, like we look at ourselves now, we look at being like Black queer people now, and we have a lot of rights that our ancestors did not have back then. And some of them are still alive, but I'm speaking in a sense of like they paved the way for us to get here. Even still, we are still right now. And there are still kids that are getting kicked out of their homes for being who they are, and knowing the history and speaking to people in ballroom and in my tribe that grew up in those times, and them telling me how rough it was back then, and them traveling to spaces in New York that were barely adult friendly, let alone kid friendly, at 3 o'clock in the morning, G, out with the motherfucking hookers.
When someone has rejection from their mother and father or their family, when they get out in the world, they search.
Dealers and the drug addicts and like out here living because I can't be myself at home because I'm not accepted at home. Like that shit is mind blowing.
Then you got to think like, what do you expect them to do but to be in that life at that point? You know, this is what they know. These are the people who are showing them love and who are taking care of them. You know, and this is how they got to make money. This is how they have to live. So, you 14-year-old kid out in the street simply because you're gay. Now you might have to sell your body to make it. Now you might have to do things you don't want. Now you might have to do some drugs. You might have to, you know, all because, you know. Let me not say that.
Listen, but I will say this: something beautiful that comes out of such tragedy is that I don't think y'all understand, but ballroom folks. It's a very specific brand of person that thrives in ballroom, and they grind to make it happen. I've watched people put on productions and bring things to life that the average motherfucker could never, ever do.
Right.
The artistry and the beauty that comes out of ballroom, regardless of all the drama, regardless of all the oppression, regardless of all of like the dirt digging that motherfuckers got to go through, people in ballroom are some of the most creative people I've ever seen in my life. And a lot of people have gone on to be great business people. They have gone on to create their own like companies and shit like that. Motherfuckers have gone on to work in those spaces that they were striving to be in. And I am just elated to be a part of the scene. I really, really am. So let's talk about some of the people that we were introduced to in Paris is Burning. Let's talk about your favorite people. Let's talk about your favorite phrases. Like, walk me through the folks that stuck out to you and really, really settled down in your spirit. Who are your faves for Paris is Burning?
Okay, so the first one is probably going to be super obvious because it's one of the first faces that we saw, but also, I mean, because she's everything. Pepper LaBeija. Just so like one of those people where it's like she could not be bothered to be there with you, but she'd rather not be anywhere else at the same time. It's like you don't know how to take her. Like, is she disgusted with me or does she love me? Is she with me or does she like me?
Yes.
And that's she's just any moment to throw just like a little bit of harmless shade. I love it. Like, I love it. And it's just the drama. So she was my first one. Octavia, beautiful, stunning, gorgeous, insane. I can't take it. I don't understand. It's wild. It's crazy. Wow. And I've had a GIF of her in my phone. Mm-hmm. Like, I've had an iPhone and did not know it was her until I watched the scene of it happen in the movie. I was like, oh! So yes, Freddie Pendavis, beautiful soul. Yeah. Like, that would have been somebody I would have hung out with him. Like, that would have been like my homie. That would have been bestie. And speaking of Pendavis, who was the other Pendavis? Oh my gosh, what's his name?
I can't think of his name right now.
The moment when Mama had on the linen in the bar, and she turned the fan. And turned the fan and gave me I was like, yes! It's so subtle, it's so high. I loved it, man. And special shouts out to, I don't know who this person with their name is, but there is a sequence in here where they're like showing like the voguing and stuff like that. And there is this gentleman wearing green sweatpants. Nigga. Bro. Bro.
I want my eggs cracked.
I need you to understand something. niggas in the 80s and the 90s was a different kind of fine.
That's crazy.
Like, we didn't have a lot of like
Crazy.
additives and shit in the food. The shit was real pure. We got a lot of like real good, or we had organic food before it was organic.
Period.
And I need y'all to understand that them niggas back then was eating and they were working out for dear life. And this man, whoever you are, I hope that you are still alive. And I know that you are probably still as fine as frog hair permed on paper. Sir, you created a fire in my young loins that still burns to this day.
As long as it ain't bacterial vaginosis, child, you gonna be fine.
Oh, shit, yo.
But nah, those are some of my. I have a lot more, but I don't want to take them all from you. So you go.
Yeah, you know, like we share some of the same folks. Freddie, and I think that Freddie is one of the members of the cast that is still with us to this day. Yes, Freddie is one of the only ones that is still with us to this day.
Yes. Wait, so I can reach out to Freddie.
Yeah. I feel like I found him on Facebook at one point in time. I'm not sure, but I know that he is still around with us, which is really a blessing. I think that it is Junior LaBeija, who was the commentator in the film. I take great joy as a commentator for Junior, because that is legacy, that is foundation. Commentation has come so far.
Yeah.
Since then, it's even evolved in my time being a commentator. It's just like, but his energy is that, listen, you got to be on that mic. You got to be able to handle the floor. You are the master of ceremonies, bitch. And Junior just gave it to the opulence.
OPULENCE. Opulence. You own everything. Everything is yours.
You own everything. Like,
you know what got me? The one that got me when it was thin, streamline, model.
Yes. Yo, there are some wines in Paris is Burning that y'all just don't know. Like, you bitches have been saying these things for a long time. And this is our foundation. This is where this comes from. And again, this is when we come back to how important Paris is Burning is for the culture, because what a lot of people might not know is that a lot of these stories that were told in Paris is Burning were brought to you through different characters in Pose. Yes, Candy's story is Venus Extravaganza's story. Dorian Corey's story is the ever-loving Electra's story. These are things that have actually happened. Like, this is not new shit. They brought it back to you and retold these stories on Pose. And when Pose came up, and we will get back to that in the Pose episode, because y'all know it's coming.
Yeah.
Like, seeing those stories that I know that growing up in ballroom I heard about, seeing those come alive on the screen was just crazy to me. So I'm like forever grateful about Paris is Burning for everything that they brought to the culture. Another character that sits deep in my soul is Willie Ninja. Willie, I had the pleasure of actually meeting Willie once before he at a ball in LA. Just as regal as you would ever imagine.
Okay.
I am so like watching it back again. Every time I watch Paris is Burning and I hear Willie say the line.
I want to take voguing not to just Paris is Burning, but I want to take it to the real Paris and make the real Paris burn. That's what I want to do, and not just there, but to other countries as well. My house name is Ninja, and I would really like to take my whole house and go to Japan and really let loose and do it and have them accept it there. I want to be a big star.
And knowing that there is a fucking chapter of Ninja in Paris right now. Like seeing my ancestors' dreams come to life, it fucked me up.
It got me when he said, I want this to go to Japan, and then I think to myself, fast forward to Legendary, and I'm like, it did. I'm like, I'm like, it happened. There was even a moment when I believe it was Octavia, or it was Octavia or Venus. They were talking about wanting to be like famous, important, remembered.
Octavia. Both of them actually.
And I was watching, and I'm like, you are. I'm like, it happened. Like, and that I find joy. This is one of my favorite things we've done this season.
So 2 more things, and then we're gonna wrap it up. So, another question I have for you is, what were some of the things that you learned watching Paris is Burning? Because I found myself, every time I watch it, I learn something a little bit more, something else catches my eye. Like, what were some of the things that you learned while you watched?
Then reading became a developed form where it became shade. Shade is, I don't tell you you're ugly, but I don't have to tell you because you know you're ugly. And that's shade.
One of the first things that I learned, and it was a huge misconception I had, and I'm talking about up until rewatching it, is that for some reason I didn't catch the first time when Dorian and Pepper were talking about balls from many a generation before, basically. So for me, in my mind, it was, ballroom started in the 70s and the 80s. No. That's just when the 80s is when, or the 90s is when it became like something that people kind of knew about. But this had to be 60s. Like it
even a little bit further back than that, honestly.
See, so like, I'm thinking this is much older and goes much deeper than even the people that I look at as pioneers. Like, they aren't even the pioneers. These people that we're watching are the generation after, pretty much. And it's like, so I was kind of floored. I'm like, bitch, like you said on the podcast, this ain't new.
No, not at all. Like, I need people to understand that the first ball was thrown by a black drag queen during slavery.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wow.
And I can't remember his name right now, but that's been something that's been coming up a lot more lately. Yes.
That's wild.
I'm still around slavery times, like right. Yes, in that area where people would come to the balls, and first black drag queen out here throwing these balls for people to come and let their hair down and do the things. The competition and stuff came later, with the likes of Crystal LaBeija, who was not in this movie, but she was in the movie The Queen. If you go and check that one out to learn a little bit more about that, you can watch that. But yes, definitely it goes with the roots are deep. But if you don't know, you don't know, and you don't look back far enough to find out.
And one thing I want to say, and this is the biggest thing that I took away from this and that I learned, this right here, the people in this film, that's what real nerve is. That's nerve. You were putting your life on the line for real, for real. You're not even talking about, you being a trans person. We're talking about you just existing as a gay person.
Yes.
Like this is nerve. The nerve to back then go out dressed as a different gender when you know it could be your last day.
Honey, because it do take nerve. A lady is never sure at night. She needs her pocketbook. It do take nerve.
That was the other one. That was the other one. And see, that's the thing. Like, I had heard RuPaul mention that on Drag Race a couple times, and I'm like, oh, funny line. But I'm like, no, this is hilarious referencing. That's what it is. Yeah, man.
And y'all got to, when folks try to figure out the discourse and the tension that is had between Ballroom Girls and RuPaul. RuPaul was not originally part of Ballroom, has never been a part of Ballroom, but RuPaul has literally infused pieces of her show with ballroom culture. And I get it. It's part of gay culture. Again, it's infectious. You can't get away from it. You can't get away from it. The things that Ballroom has produced, y'all gonna be hearing it forever, because Gay people make the taste, y'all. I need y'all to get that.
And especially when they black too. Okay?
Black gay folks make
hold
the
on,
taste.
hold on 1 second. 1 second.
Exactly. Hello?
Okay.
That's it. So, with all of that being said, Sir Cassidy, we have the final question that we have with every episode. Paris is burning. Reboot or keep it cute?
Okay. So, a little bit of nuance. I say reboot, but only because, see, now the producers of now like to produce. Huh? And also the subjects, the cast of now also likes to produce. So I would love to see an updated version. Like a Paris is Burning of now of sorts, to kind of like lay another plank of the bridge down, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I definitely say rebooted. Although, fun fact, there is a documentary that is kind of heralded as a Paris is Burning 2. It is called How Do I Look? I do have a copy of it somewhere deep in my storage unit. I'm going to have to try to find it so I can send it to you and you can have a look. How Do I Look came out in the early 2000s, and it kind of does exactly what you're asking, where it picks up with this newer generation of ballroom, takes you through things, walks you through ballroom again, etc., etc. Also, for our viewers, if you want to watch something that is more updated about ballroom, but is about a different facet of ballroom, which is the Kiki thing, you can watch Kiki, and that's spelled Kiki. Kiki takes you through the Kiki scene in ballroom, which is another facet of ballroom that is geared towards the younger crowd of ballroom. We're talking teens on up into early 20s. The House of Juicy Couture is a Kiki house. You know them from Legendary. Kiki is a really good documentary as well. It is very Paris is Burning-esque. It takes you through all the things, all the emotions. We have the history here, folks. All you got to do is look for it and find it. You know what I'm saying? But I'm with you on that. I would love another documentary about ballroom because, again, ballroom is ever evolving. It ain't even the same as it was when Kiki came out. Definitely has come a long way from How Do I Look. All of these things are here. Also, folks, if you want to learn about ballroom, if you want to know about ballroom, go to ballroom to find out. YouTube clips are great, but watch the documentaries, get into the things, follow ballroom folks online, learn the history, and don't be out here looking crazy, and we won't talk about you. It's just that fucking simple.
I got a question before you go. It just jumped in my head.
What's up?
I don't even know what all the categories are. What categories should I or could I walk in my first ball if I ever?
All right, Chase. So here we go.
What do you think?
I can see you walking Schoolboy Realness.
Okay.
You can definitely walk Schoolboy. Because you are an adult, you could also walk Executive Realness. But you have a very boyish charm, so you can literally do both. Also, I could see you killing American Runway. I could see you do that.
What is that? I've never.
American Runway is runway, but the focus of American Runway is two things.
Okay.
It is the look. So whatever the category is calling for, your look has to be on point. And then the walk. The walk for American Runway is the very masculine model walk. So when you watch a male fashion show, the way that they walk is the way that you walk in American Runway.
Okay.
In opposition to European, which is more like the ladies walk, and then we've got like our own flair ballroom, the countryness, the shady runway, all the things. So yes, I can see you walking American Runway. And I really, 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 really want to teach you how to vote because I can see you walking realness with a twist. I can see you doing that. That could totally be a thing. Those are the categories I can see you walking.
That's fun. I will happily do each of them. I would happily.
Yes.
Be a good time.
Yes.
Which great.
Exactly.
Butch Queen.
Butch Queen.
Butch Queen.
Butch Queen.
Yes, Butch Queen. Yo, thank y'all for joining us for another episode of Drag It. Make sure you come back next time and check us out on the next episode. We will be reviewing yet another Black, gay classic, y'all. Make sure that you are liking, you are commenting, you are sharing, and you are subscribing. Support me, bitch! Come on, y'all. You can do this. Get them numbers up. Leave them comments down there. Y'all see how we get down. We have great conversations in the comments. Let's get it cracking. I love y'all. Peace out.
Give me the honey.